We have new allegations surrounding Sean Combs, and these are actually not that far back. We're talking 2022. We're going to break down these claims from recently filed lawsuits and see if they can play a role in Sean Combs' criminal case. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Sean Diddy Combs has been a huge cultural figure for decades. After launching rap label Bad Boy Records in the 90s, Combs shot to fame. He was soon known for not only music producing, but also for a fashion label, major brand deals. But prosecutors, as well as alleged victims who have filed their own lawsuits against Sean Combs, they say the rapper used his power, his fame, his money to run a criminal organization that was focused on satisfying his sexual fantasies, that he used his businesses to accomplish these illegal goals. And right now, Sean Combs, he's in the Metropolitan Detention Center out in Brooklyn awaiting trial in federal court. Grand jury indicted him on charges of sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, transportation to engage in prostitution. And I do want to say right off the bat, Combs has always denied that he ever assaulted or abused anyone. He says the claims put forth in more than a dozen lawsuits are money grabs, they're publicity stunts. His defense team says he will likely take the stand in his own defense at trial, although we won't be able to see it because cameras are not allowed in federal courthouses. I will tell you actually, he says he denies everything, but as we know, he admitted, or seemingly admitted, that it was him on that video from 2016 of him purportedly beating his ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura in a hotel hallway. But putting that aside, he has denied everything. And we've talked a lot here on Sidebar about the different accusations against Combs. For example, the federal indictment refers to victim one, who we have deduced is Cassandra Ventura, and she filed her own explosive lawsuit against him nearly 1 year ago. She accused him of abusing her for a decade during their on-again, off-again relationship. Combs settled that lawsuit within just a day, but that opened the floodgates for more and more lawsuits to come in. Ventura's accusations centered around her time with Combs between 2005, when they first met, and 2018, when they finally broke it off for good. But since her lawsuit was filed, more women and men have come forward to say that they were victimized by Sean Combs as far back as the mid-90s. And many of those claims are part of a slew of lawsuits that are being filed by a Texas law firm, Tony Busby. This lawyer, he recently announced that he would be filing more than 100 individual lawsuits against Sean Combs, and so far, he's delivered on that promise, nearly a dozen. And we have started hearing stories from alleged victims about how they were attacked when they were just children. For example, a man only identified as John Doe claims Combs forced him to drop his pants at a white party in the Hamptons in 1998 when the alleged victim was 16 years old. And he says Combs molested him for several minutes. His lawsuit even includes a photo that John Doe took with Combs. Another lawsuit from a Jane Doe claims she was raped by Combs and another unidentified celebrity in a New York home at the VMA's after party in 2000 when she was 13 years old. And then you have adult alleged victims also having claims going back to the 90s. Lisa Gardner says she was 16 back in 1990 when she and her friend were drugged and raped by Combs and singer-songwriter Aaron Hall. Joy Dickerson Neal was a college student in 1991 when she claims Combs not only drugged and raped her, but also videotaped it. And while Combs started his meteoric rise in the 1990s, victims claim that his behavior only became more deviant. What do I talk about all the time? I talk about legal rulings, right? It's Sidebar, it's Law&Crime. Now, we have a landmark one for you that has just changed things in a very big way. You can now legally trade on who will win the 2024 election. Yes, legally. And that's because our sponsor of Sidebar, Kalshi, went to court and won legal approval for election trading for the first time in over 100 years. Not only can you essentially bet on the 2024 presidential election winner, but with Kalshi, you can bet on who will control the House, who will control the Senate, who will win the swing states, and a lot more. I think that's timely. And it's not just politics, by the way. You can bet on other future events, too, like will Taylor Swift win Top Artist on Spotify this year? What will be the Rotten Tomatoes score for upcoming movies like Gladiator 2? Actually, I think it's going to be above 85%. Personally, I think it's going to do really well. But there's so much more, and you're going to be like, wow, I can trade on that? This is the only place to trade on events like this in all 50 states. And you can sign up now using our link, kalshi.com/sidebar, or you can scan the QR code on screen. And if you're one of the first 500 traders who deposit $100, Kalshi will give you a free $20 credit. That's kalshi.com/sidebar. Enjoy. Now, A lot of these accusations, as you can see, are relatively old. That is until we talk about what happened this week, because we want to take a closer look at 3 lawsuits that were filed this week by Tony Buzbee on behalf of 3 anonymous victims who all claim they had brutal encounters with Sean Combs in 2022. So, to discuss this, I want to bring in trial attorney Parker Stinar, who has a lot of experience dealing with sexual assault cases. Parker, thanks so much for coming on the show. Great to meet you. First, before we even begin, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your practice so we can set the stage.
To begin, Jesse, thank you for having me on. My name is Parker Stinar. I'm the managing partner of a law firm based out of Chicago, but really we represent clients all over the country, and we specialize in sexual abuse. The law firm is Steiner, Gould, Greco, and Hensley. But some of the cases that we've been involved with have gotten national media attention. I represented survivors of Dr. Larry Nassar at Michigan State University. A couple years ago, I led a case against the University of Michigan on behalf of another abuser that settled for $490 million. It's really the specialty that we do, representing survivors against religious institutions, powerful universities, hospitals and healthcare systems, as well as other powerful individuals that take advantage of their position and power and sexually abuse, neglect, and physically abuse individuals like we're seeing right now from the civil and as well as criminal lawsuit.
You are uniquely specialized and experienced in this kind of allegations. And when you hear Tony Buzbee saying he's going to file all these lawsuits, and we are seeing a flurry of lawsuits, not even just from him, but a lot even post indictment. What do you take away from that?
So, to begin, it's very hard for a survivor of sex abuse to come forward. And when you've talked about the different periods of time that survivors have alleged abuse, 1990s, 2000s, up till 2022, there's a lot of scientific research that goes into when, if ever, a survivor of abuse ever comes forward. And the most publicized science based study suggests for a survivor of sex abuse, if they ever come forward, it's at 52 years old. So it's no surprise to me that these individuals have are now bringing lawsuits. I bet that they have a lot of reassurance and comfort given that there's also a criminal case ongoing. But there's a lot of fear behind coming forward and filing a civil lawsuit, let alone against someone like Mr. Combs.
It makes me, and when you talk about the 2022 lawsuits, right? Excuse me, when you talk about the lawsuits referring to conduct in 2022, that feels like a stronger case in terms of the evidence. It's not as stale, probably less room to argue. Hey, why are you only bringing these claims now? Well, you're talking about something from 2 years ago, not from 1996, right? So talk to me about the significance of claims from 2022.
Well, regardless of what type of civil case plaintiffs are bringing, they still have the same burden of proof, preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not, position. However, I certainly agree with you. The allegations from 2022, opposed to 1999 or 1990 or 1999, perhaps has cell phone tracking data, social media tracking data, video surveillance, like you stated, as far as recollection from witnesses, or perhaps witnesses that are still alive. There's a lot more supportive evidence, one would believe, from an allegation of 2022 than some of these longer cases where memories fade or there were simply the technologies that we have today.
Let me ask you this. Stronger chance that they may be, these accusers accusing Sean Combs of misconduct back in 2022, stronger chance they're government witnesses because these claims are so recent? The reason I say this is we don't know who's cooperating with the government. We don't know who the alleged victims are in this case. We don't know who the witnesses are. But chances that the government would find witnesses from who are alleging misconduct from 2022, because the government's case is talking about criminal activity of Sean Combs from 2008 to 2024. You think there's a greater likelihood that these individuals could be working with the government?
So I assume the prosecutor's office is following all the civil complaints, and for what it is, whatever cooperation that they're able to obtain, evidence, witness statements, and otherwise from these various plaintiffs, I'm sure they're trying to gather as much as possible to build their criminal case. And if their criminal case is starting more than a decade ago, they need to build the evidence starting in 2008 up until today. And certainly those 2022 allegations will be very helpful to them. And as I stated, there's probably more evidence, or at least technological evidence, from 2022 than from 2008.
So I want to go through these lawsuits, and Parker's going to be here to break them down with me. So to preface this, I should say basically all of the lawsuits, they begin the same way, similar language. They give the background on who Sean Combs is, what businesses he's involved with, and so on. But before they even get into what are the actual, it's called the factual allegations that are specific to that John Doe or Jane Doe. So the first suit that I want to talk about is from a John Doe in California. And it reads, plaintiff, a dedicated personal trainer, work with celebrities and other notable individuals concerning their health and fitness. In or around 2022, a fashion designer whom plaintiff trained told them she shared videos showcasing plaintiff's distinctive workouts and exercises with defendant Combs. This fashion designer told plaintiff that Combs was impressed with plaintiff's training regimen and wanted to meet plaintiff and feature him in a video. The fashion designer eventually extended an invitation to plaintiff for him to attend an exclusive award show after party in Los Angeles hosted by Combs. John Doe says that Combs sent a car to pick him up in June of 2022, take him to this after party at Combs' house in the Hollywood Hills. He claims he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement before he was allowed in, which he says he did because he wanted the opportunity to promote himself to what is a major A-lister. He also claims he was handed a drink, told he had to drink it before he could go into the party. Now the complaint continues. Eventually, a business associate of Combs guided plaintiff from a large room illuminated with red lights into a smaller room. There, plaintiff observed approximately a dozen individuals, including several well-known figures, who were engaging in group sex activities. Once inside this smaller room, plaintiff began to feel disoriented, dizzy, and weak, far beyond what he would expect from consuming a single alcoholic beverage. It became clear to him that something was wrong. He later realized someone had drugged him. At this moment of realizing his significant impairment, Combs approached plaintiff, removed his pants, and began performing non-consensual oral sex onto him. Combs then directed plaintiff to perform oral sex on another individual in the room, known as Celebrity A. While in and out of consciousness, individuals at the party forced plaintiff into sexual acts with both men and women. Plaintiff's physical disposition made it impossible for him to reject their advances or otherwise control his body. John Doe says that he later woke up outside of his apartment without a shirt, without his phone. He doesn't remember how he got there. So Parker, what do you make from those allegations? Because on one hand, right, they're incredibly disturbing and harrowing. On the other hand, if you're someone who's intoxicated like this, how do you remember those kind of details?
Yeah, I mean, as you stated, these are allegations. And I agree that they are horrific and shocking and unbelievably sad. Unfortunately, these allegations are relatively similar, at least in nature, to all the other complaints that were filed. And as an attorney that's represented over 1,000 survivors of abuse, sadly, our society and even our judicial system views one individual coming forward and put certain weight on their story compared to dozens or hundreds or thousands. And here, although this John Doe has a very specific claim and allegation, there are different things that are consistent as far as the perhaps drugging allegation, as far as the nature of these events, these orgy type situations, or being forced to perform acts or have acts performed on him by other individuals. To your point, as far as if he was so intoxicated or drugged that he was forced to perform these acts, how could he remember it? That's a burden that the plaintiff's going to have to have. And it's a burden that they may have to prove through medical experts that talk about different drug components and how it can influence perhaps someone in that moment, but it doesn't influence their memory or recollection. And not only that, the plaintiff himself would have to take the stand, share with the jury what he experienced and his allegations, and then it's up to a jury of his peers and also Mr. Combs' peers to determine, is this true or is
Right.
this false?
By the way, would you agree with me that when you see celebrity A or celebrity B, these unnamed celebrities in a case like this, Tony Busby had said that, I think he said it to TMZ, that he was going to go after these people. He was going to sue these people. But some of them might have already reached out to him to settle their claims so they're not named in a lawsuit. Do you see those unnamed celebrities as people who have already settled with Tony Busby, who he doesn't plan to bring any claims against, or is planning to, and this is a warning sign, we just filed the suit. Celebrity A, you know who you are. You better come reach out to us.
I think it's a strategic legal move. Mr. Combs is in the public spotlight right now. There's already a criminal case. Naming him individually in another civil case really isn't a shock. The brand damage has already been done or is continuing to take place. But like you said, listing celebrity A, celebrity B, or all these other now not yet named individuals certainly opens the door. If you're celebrity A and these events did in fact take place, you may be fearful of a civil lawsuit coming forward. And as we've seen with Harvey Weinstein, with Mr. Combs and others, these allegations are serious and can rightfully so ruin a career if there aren't also criminal cases brought. What I would say though is, as an attorney that represents survivors of abuse, anyone that abuses someone needs to be held accountable. And allowing for private settlements and allowing someone to escape their wrongdoing perhaps isn't in the best interest of survivors of abuse or future individuals that could be exposed to that wrongdoing.
That's fair. That's a good point. Now, as I mentioned, this is one of several lawsuits. So Tony Busby's law firm also filed a lawsuit on behalf of another John Doe from California. This is a Los Angeles businessman who says he's the owner of a family business that specializes in renting luxury cars and jewelry. And he says he came to know Combs through that business, and Combs invited him to a promotional party for Ciroc vodka. In this lawsuit, Doe actually includes a photo of Combs sitting in what appears to be a living room area surrounded by what John Doe calls other high-profile individuals who have been redacted out. But his complaint reads, during the event, Combs instructed plaintiff to join him in Combs' private office. Plaintiff went into the office where the two were alone. Plaintiff assumed Combs wanted to have a discussion about business. However, plaintiff immediately realized Combs was intoxicated and acting strangely. Combs began awkwardly moving closer to plaintiff, and as he did so, Combs removed his pants and exposed his genitals to plaintiff. John Doe claims that Combs then grabbed at his private area in a sexual manner and he froze up, not sure what to do. The complaint says that another celebrity actually came to his rescue. Quote, the situation escalated until another individual, professional athlete A, entered the office and intervened, which ended the Combs assault of plaintiff. So that's interesting because it makes me wonder, could professional athlete A maybe be a witness in this case?
Absolutely. I mean, what we've seen, at least through social media accounts and other related events, Mr. Combs surrounded himself by other well-known musicians, athletes, celebrities. And at these events, these high-profile events where these survivors or John or Jane Does were invited, I'm sure part of the enticing invite to these John or Jane Does was, you're going to be at an event not only with Mr. Combs, but with this athlete or this celebrity or this musician. So I would not be surprised if, again, these allegations turned out to be true, that there are other high profile witnesses to these events. And it puts Mr. Combs, as well as these potential witnesses, in very difficult and uncomfortable situations. And although the witness perhaps would not be a named defendant or face civil or criminal liability, in the public eye, that's enabling, or it could be seen as enabling by many.
Let's talk about this final lawsuit about 2022. This one talks about a Jane Doe. She says she was 29 years old in December of 2022, that she had been working as an independent music artist who wrote, sang, rap, produced music. And she says that she and several of her friends were invited to a party in New York City that was hosted by Sean Combs. And her lawsuit lays out several pieces of information that speak to Combs' influence and his wealth. These are important themes that we see not only in the criminal case, but also these civil cases. And she talks about how elegant the home was, how the servers were quick to offer food and drinks, how there was a ton of celebrities there from the music industry and TV. She also talked about alleged drug use at the party, which has, again, also been a common theme in the allegations against Combs. And the complaint says, as plaintiff mingled with other guests, she noticed the widespread use of drugs, including cocaine, pills, and marijuana. Those employed and working in conspiracy with Combs pressured all guests to consume the drugs that were being provided and served by the house staff. Plaintiff declined the repeated offers. That evening, plaintiff drank a single glass of wine, consuming no other substances. And then Jane Doe says that Combs approached her to talk about her music career. He apparently expressed interest in her work and wanted to feature her on a song, so he allegedly invited her to his office to talk in private. Quote, after arriving in the office, plaintiff began feeling disoriented, as if she was slipping in and out of consciousness. It became clear to her at this time that she had been drugged. Due to the effects of her drug drink, Combs raped and sexually assaulted plaintiff. Plaintiff could not stop him from doing so, as if she was trapped inside her body, not participating but not able to resist. The next thing plaintiff clearly remembers is waking up at around 6 a.m., confused and disoriented, in the same office where the assault took place. Jane Doe says that she was bleeding from her private area. She had bruising on her lips, as well as deep imprints on her arms and wrists that may have suggested she was tied up. She says she tried to find her phone and clothes, but she couldn't, so she put out a random pair of pants and a shirt and left. So Parker, not only you're dealing with maybe physical evidence or maybe documentation of physical evidence, but if you talk about the criminal case, I think a lot of those themes, as I mentioned, make their way into the criminal case. The idea of the wealth, the power, the drug use, the pressure. I wonder if somebody like Jane Doe could be a cooperating witness in the prosecution's case, aside from the fact that her claims in the civil case are very harrowing and she may have a legitimate claim.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, what we've seen in a variety of industries with powerful individuals, and like I stated, Harvey Weinstein. Look at what's taking place with the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yeah.
Powerful institutions that have tremendous wealth, that have these luxurious homes and parties and staff there, and oftentimes involving drugs. These individuals in these positions of power unfortunately believe that they can get away with anything. And as described in that complaint, certainly the prosecutor's office and law enforcement want to hold everyone who participated in criminal activities accountable. So it may expand beyond Mr. Combs. It may expand to these individuals, his staff, other celebrities perhaps, or individuals that are part of his group that enabled this conduct, participated in it, who's passing out these drinks. That person may be exposed to criminal liability.
And I should tell you that when Tony Busby announced that he would be filing all these lawsuits on behalf of dozens of people, Combs' legal team put out a statement saying they and Combs have full confidence in the facts, their legal defenses, and the integrity of the judicial process. In court, the truth will prevail that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted anyone, adult or minor, man or woman. In fact, in a bid for the judge to put a gag order in place, Mark Agnifilo, Sean Combs' counsel, wrote, as the court is aware, Mr. Combs has been the target of an unending stream of allegations by prospective witnesses and their counsel in the press. These prospective witnesses and their lawyers have made numerous inflammatory extrajudicial statements aimed at assassinating Mr. Combs' character in the press. So that's not necessarily about the allegations in the actual lawsuits. Those are actual allegations in a legal filing, but the comments that they make outside of court. Parker, look, one of the things we forget is Sean Combs wasn't convicted of anything. He wasn't found liable of anything. And given how many allegations he faces, sometimes we forget that. He is entitled to a defense. He's innocent until proven guilty. And sometimes, you have to hear the other side.
Absolutely. And, that's one of the things that I've stated throughout our conversation is that these are simply allegations. And I'm happy to hear that Mr. Combs and his legal team have trust and faith in our judicial system, and they're taking the position that they are. And ultimately, in his criminal case, and he has not yet been found guilty. His criminal trial is many, many months away. And we'll ultimately see what a jury of his peers determine. And that's the same for the civil cases. There's a possibility that he could be found not guilty in his criminal cases, but be found guilty in these 100+ civil lawsuits and probably many, many more that will come forward. Unfortunately for Mr. Combs, if he is guilty, this isn't going to go away after his criminal trial.
Oh, yeah. No, that is definitely true. Parker Stinar, thank you so much for coming on, breaking down these new allegations with us. Really, really appreciate it. And so nice to meet you. Thank you so much. And also want to call out the great work that you do as well, speaking on behalf of and representing people who are victims of this kind of abuse. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.